This is a Bushwhacker Quilt Guild's annual quilt show, and this is our bed turning. We've been doing this for about 6 years, something like that, before they remodeled the building. So it's been a while. And an old-fashioned bed turning is where the ladies of the town would, if one of the ladies had a bunch of quilts she wanted to present, she would stack them on her bed like this and present it to her, call her neighbors in. They'd just have a social event of it, and she would uncover her quilt and tell the story of why she made it or how she made it or anyway, and they just made a social event of it. So today we're going to give you one with stories. So our first one today is called The Trip Around the World, and it belongs to Janet Hurlburt. Is that right? Hurlburt.
Janet, say your name. Hurlburt.
Hurlburt. Okay. And Janet says, I was blessed with two remarkable women in my life. My mother, Ella, was an artist and a master quilter. She made and hand quilted over 30 beautiful quilts throughout her life, as well as hundreds of others that she machine quilted. My mother-in-law, Naoma, she made me part of the family the first time I met her. She was bright, witty, and the nucleus of a large and happy family. After Naoma's death, two nearly completed hand-pieced quilt tops were among her possessions. One was for my husband and one for his brother. My mom took them, enlarged the tops to a sizable, usable size, and quilted them for us in 1984. She hand-quilted this Trip Around the World quilt. Though we don't know when Naoma pieced it, it is made of materials from the 40s and 50s. The green plaid came from a dress her daughter Mitzi wore when she was about 6 or 7 years old around 1953. Because the quilt is the handwork of both Ella and Naoma, it is one of my most cherished possessions. Now this quilt, it just walked through the door. She was going to hang it. She started telling us the story about it, and we're like, oh, you got to write this down. So it was made in 1956 by the Union Center Community Quilt Club in Arkansas, an age group of 15-year-olds plus. The story, the blood on the quilt, Jane, that's on one of the squares, her cousins were stealing watermelons and got shot. So Mother, which is on the quilt, took boys to the hospital wrapped in this quilt. But she has several family members on here as well as the community members. She say the blood was.
Okay, can you see Mother right there at the flower?
And the blood stains are on around that red
Hold
posy.
this one up so they can see the cats and the dogs. See the cats and the little.
Oh, I see a little spot above the cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
For no more blood, he wasn't a very good shot.
Maybe they got bled out by that point.
Shotgun, right?
They're a long way from the melon patch. Maybe they already bled out.
That's it.
This quilt belongs to Keela Vaughn. My grandmother, Clara Inez Doyle, mother of Barbara Wiseman, created many beautiful quilts by hand. They were a necessity to keep her husband and 3 children warm. She hand-stitched each one with love and so much beauty. She did not have to create such beautiful works of art to keep her family protected from the cold, but each quilt is a testimony of her special talents. Several women would gather together around a quilt frame in the local church to lovingly use their talents to hand-stitch their beautiful creations. They would laugh and tell each other about their lives. Clara and her husband owned a general store in Victory, Oklahoma. This particular quilt's pattern is a snail's trail. If you look closely, you will see how each piece of thread is so small and perfectly stitched. What a blessing it is to have this treasured quilt to pass on from generation to generation in my family. It tells the story of love, hard work, and strength of a woman who was so dear to me. Thank you to Bonnie Troll for the countless hours she spent to piece this beautiful quilt back to its original grandeur. Keela Vaughn. And Keela is the author of Finding the Light in the Darkness, as well as an inspirational speaker. This bittersweet star top was made by Josephine Preston Slankard, probably in the 40s to early 50s in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Josephine was born in Jasper County, Missouri, April 30th, 1885, to William C. and Josephine Goodwin Preston. She grew up in the Orinoco area of Jasper County, Missouri, where she met her husband, Daniel Franklin Slankard. Their two oldest children were born there before they moved to the Tulsa area in about 1909, where they had 5 more children, all raised in the Tulsa area. Her husband passed away in 1935, however. She never remarried, but lived with her children until her passing in July 9th of 1974 in Tulsa. The quilt top was in the possession of her daughter-in-law after her death, who gave it to her daughter, who gave it to her daughter, which was me, who had hand quilted it in 2008.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, this one's
Oh my
just yummy.
goodness. Gorgeous.
This was from Carol Schatz. This quilt was handmade by Helen Schnorr Norton Land in 2002. She was 80 years old at the time. She made 2 of these quilts. She gave each of her daughters one, and this one belongs to Carol Norton Master Schatz. The other one that was given to her sister Faye is being raffled off to raise money for foster children and foster parents. You can see it in the booth labeled Leah's Kids, or on display in the 9 Patch Quilt Store until July 4th. The doilies were appliqued onto the quilt by Helen herself. Each doily was made by either her mother Emma or one of her 6 sisters. Browns, greens, and oranges were her favorite colors, maybe because she was born in November. Helen was the oldest girl of 11 children, born in Hospers, Iowa, to Herman and Emma Schnorr. They were farmers, and Helen told stories of caring for her younger siblings while her mother cooked and cared for the farmhands. Helen not only cared for her siblings, but also the neighbors' children until she was old enough to do some of the cooking herself. Helen only went to the 8th grade, which was common for children at that time, but was a very strong and wise young woman and determined to make something of herself. She worked at Rancho Los Amigos State Rehabilitation Hospital in Downing, California, after moving there with her husband and 4 children in 1953. While there, she took exams and became a licensed practical nurse. Her mother taught her and her sisters all she knew about crocheting, sewing, cooking, and cleaning. They lived very meagerly on a farm where the floors were bare wood, and Helen always hated scrubbing them and trying to keep them clean. She became almost obsessed with cleaning her home after she got married. Her husband Marion would tell the friends that Helen's eyes rolled around the house during the night looking for something to clean the next morning. Helen passed away in April of 2012 at the age of 91. Her eldest daughter, Carol, has lived in Nevada since August of 81.
This one's actually tatted.
They're beautiful.
Becky
They
just
use
dropped something.
30 weight and 20 weight and all different weights of thread to make the sleeves. Well, I'm leaning forward, there's a stitch in every one, in that yellow one, there's a stitch in every one of the.
This pattern is known as several names: baby bunting, Chinese fans, broken saw, Indian trail. The body of the quilt was made in about 1940 by Amanda Jane Della DeBoard Meredith. She was born in Tennessee on September 28, 1897, to Fleming Levi and Molly Wright DeBoard, where she lived until about 1915 when the family moved to Rhino, Arkansas area. Della married Thomas Augustus Meredith and lived out the rest of her life in this area, passing on December 12, 1969. This quilt was finished in 2005 by Becky Bruce by adding borders and quilting it. This adorable friendship mouse was made by one of the members from the early years of the Bushwhacker Quilt Guild. The only date I found of it was a tiny 88 beside the name of Maxine Walrod. Therefore, I'm assuming it was made in 89 or 90. And the Quilt Guild started about 85, we think. Friendship quilts have been around for well over 150 years. They were often made as fundraisers or memory quilts for a family member or friend who was moving away from the area. If I remember correctly, this quilt was found at an estate auction by Sharon Crosswhite, a former guild member, and she donated it to the Bushwhacker Museum, who currently owns it. The list of the names are Kathy Anderson, Juanita Bells, Margaret J. Bowen, Gail Bryant, Sue Davis,